Hello my crafty friends, it's Terry here from Vegs Test Creates, here for Fairy Stamper. Today we're going to be making this lovely, clean and simple birthday card using the absolutely stunning Daisies stamp, which is a beautiful large stamp, and also using the birthday wishes stamp. And we'll also be using Zig Clean Colour Real Brush pens, just 6 of them. So if you're interested in the colours, and also a water brush. The one I'm using here is a Tombow one, which has a very fine nib, which is a recent acquisition of mine, and I really like it because I really like the super fine nib. But if you're interested in the colours, as I know sometimes people are, on the leaves I have used light green and deep green. On the centre of the daisies I have used bright yellow, and on the daisies themselves, so actually it's 5 pens, not 6. On the daisies themselves I have used Shadow Mauve, which is the sort of pale blue colour, and Almond Pink. So just 5 colours, a water brush pen, and then I've added a few embellishments with some Nouveau Jewel drops, and this is some yellow pearlescent card, and it is a 6-inch square card. So we've got 6 inches, 5 3/4 and 5 1/2 are the dimensions if you're interested, and to get a sort of an idea of the lovely large proportions of this beautiful floral. So grab yourself a cuppa, sit back and watch me colour up and make this card. I'm trying a different format of video today, so the actual making of the card is going to be sped up. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what you think, whether you like the sped up video. So settle in with a cuppa and here we go. So here I'm showing you the ink pad that I'm using today. It's a VersaFine pigment ink in smoky grey, and I'm making sure to get as full a coverage as I possibly can across the whole of the stamp. But as we stampers know, we often have to double or even triple stamp things sometimes. So yep, there we go, I'm double stamping it. This is onto watercolour card as well, so that can often make things a bit trickier, which is why I love my stamp platform so much. About to move on to the embossing of the image now, using my Sweet Dixie clear embossing powder. I really like this, and it's very helpful for when you're using a watercolour, because the heat embossed portions act as like a little barrier to stop the water from smudging and sort of bleeding out from where you want it. So I've left this bit of footage in because I don't know about you, but I just love seeing the embossing powder melt. I just think it's lovely, it's magical every single time. Yep, still heat embossing. And now I am stamping my gorgeous little sentiment, double stamping it, get it nice and crisp and dark. I'm going to heat emboss this again using the same powder. Want everything to be matching nicely. Useful little tip in case you don't do heat embossing too much: a dry paintbrush to wipe away the excess bits of embossing powder. Very handy. Again, you're going to get to see some more of the magic. I just can't get enough of it. It never gets old. So I start off by colouring the leaves. Now, I am by no means an expert at watercolouring via watercolour pens, markers, or using the pans. But so I'm basically just doing like blending two colours. So I put a bit of darker green towards the centre or any areas where I think there'll be more shadow, blend that out a little bit with the lighter colour green, and then try and leave the areas where I think there will be the most light with no medium on it, and then I'll blend the inks so that those are the lightest parts. So that's what you see me doing there, just sort of pulling the ink up and pulling it down as well. This video is sped up twice, so that's why it doesn't look too sort of like I'm crazily moving my hands everywhere. But I did think it would be nice to do this and let you see the whole process, because the way I usually film my videos is just by editing everything down. But I do think, I mean, I personally like watching full videos sometimes, but obviously they can be quite long. So we've got the best of both worlds here. So I'm continuing on. This is the way that I tend to colour leaves, whether I'm using watercolours or alcohol markers, just the darker colour of the 2 or 3 that I've chosen in the darkest areas, and then just blending out to the light. And obviously with watercolours, you know, you do just leave area like white patches so that you can then pull the colour into them. And a little bit later on you'll see me actually where I've put too much water on, and then or deliberately put on extra water so that I can pull away some of the pigment to make it even whiter. I really like the way this particular leaf turns out. Actually, I think it looks really dimensional. I love using these Zig Clean Colour Real Brush pens as well. Because they do have a real brush, it's like, you know, you can feel like a professional artist without being a professional artist. And they are just a pleasure to use, and I've used mine for ages, and you know, they show no sign of drying up. So if it's something that you've been scared of trying, you know, using watercolor pens, obviously Zig isn't the only brand, you know, available. You know, but if you've sort of wanted to try but thought, oh, I don't know, it might be a bit too difficult, because I think we can often get put off by things and sort of think that they're going to be more difficult than they actually are. Well, as you can see from this, it's literally you just put some of the darker colour in the areas that you want to be darkest. You can see what I'm doing here. You don't actually have to use water with these markers, because you can just blend them into each other. So I think I've gone on to a bit of an autopilot moment with this leaf, and you can see what I'm doing. It's like, oh, okay, I've forgotten to leave some white space, so I'm going in there, adding some water with my water brush, dabbing some off so that I can get more highlight on the leaf, because I'd forgotten to leave some white space. So it is relatively easy to fix any little boo-boos. But I'd also encourage you not to think of things that don't go specifically to plan as boo-boos, because creativity is just that. It's just being creative, it's playing, it's having fun. So it doesn't matter if things don't always go according to plan. Now I'm colouring the centres of the daisies now in the yellow colour, but obviously because there's a lot of the embossing powder on there, you do see that, and the reason I'm dabbing it is to make sure that to get off that yellow ink, because if I didn't, it would just sit there on top. I'm doing the same there with the stems. So I've tried to add in some green to bits of the stems, but being realistic, there's not much of the stem that isn't covered in the light grey pigment ink. But I think it turns out well, just having a bit of colour here and there. And now I'm going in with the shadow mauve, which is sort of like a very pale blue. So obviously when colouring something that's white, you know, it's about using our imagination. I mean, you know, things aren't really white, or even things that are, you know, they reflect, I think, things around them. So, you know, we can use colours like pale blue, pale purple, pink, yellow, greys, sort of neutral or warm greys. I tend to use those more on critters. But so with this one, I went for the pale almond pink and the shadow mauve, and a bit too much water there, blotted some away. I remember struggling a bit with this leaf, but we got there in the end. But I think it's just nice to just have that creative freedom to be able to use colours as we want to, you know, as long as it looks good to you, it's good, it's fine. You know, so yeah, okay, in reality, a daisy, you probably won't see bits of pink and blue on it, but I think it ends up looking quite nice, so I'm happy with that. That's good enough for me, and I encourage you to take the same attitude, because comparing ourselves to others and perfectionism are not good traits to foster. You know, we can compare ourselves to ourselves and see our improvement over time. I think that's really good to recognise. I certainly noticed that in myself when I look back. It's one thing about having a YouTube channel. When you look back at your older work, you're like, okay, yeah, I do things a bit differently now, as I'm sure you can relate. I'm just giving you a close-up look. Oh, I think it looks quite nice. But yeah, I'm liking the way that this is turning out, and just how clean and simple it is. And I think, you know, there are so many, you know, beautiful, you know, many and varied techniques out there that we can use, that sometimes it's easy to forget about really simple things. You know, so just like a little bit of colour, you know, and a lot of white space. So I think this card would sort of come under the clean and simple or CAS category, because it does have a lot of white space. When I was initially planning out this card, I was thinking of that I would quite like to do a sort of a wash, like a wash of aqua marker or zig marker or something, and across the background. But in order to do that, I would then I was sort of thinking about, am I going to have to use a mask, and, you know, how shall I do it? So I just decided upon keeping it really simple, which I haven't been doing as much of late. I think the projects I've been doing of late have been quite time consuming and using lots of different techniques. So I think for me, certainly, you know, sort of going back to basics with this has been a really nice experience. So I'm continuing with the same as I did with the leaves, just putting a bit of colour down, pulling it out with the water brush. For the bottom leaves on these flowers, I chose to use the shadow mauve, and then on the topmost petals, I chose to use the pink. I can't remember if I've already said this, but I did also think about possibly using yellow, like a pale yellow. I thought that might look really nice as well. So if you've got this stamp and you fancy having a bash, yellow might be a good one to try, even as well as those colours, you know, or, you know, switch out the pink for the yellow, or switch out the blue for the yellow. A different, like a lighter shade, because I think the one I used was bright yellow, but it's more of an orangey yellow. It's not a pale yellow by any means. And as I said, I only sped this portion of the video up twice, and you can see we're nearly done now. We're pretty much down to our final bloom. So finishing off this one. Having a little close up just to check as we go along. And the first leaves have dried already. You see how much texture and sort of depth you can get. And obviously that in part is due to the quality of the stamps, because Fairy Stamper Hugs stamps are extremely high quality. I really like using them. You know, they're photopolymer, they're really good, they're beautiful to use. You know, but look how much curvature you can see on that leaf. That's just the leftmost leaf, and the bottom one actually. I think they're the ones that have turned out the best. And whilst I'm finishing off the last bloom, I'll just you know, sort of take this opportunity to remind you about the Fairy Stamper Hugs Facebook group. It's a lovely community over there. You don't have to use Fairy Hugs stamps to join the group. I know some groups you have to use their particular products in order to be allowed in, but that's not the case with Fairy Stamper Hugs or Fairy Hugs, the Facebook group. I'll leave the link in the description box below, and the link to the store as well. So in the US, there's the Fairy Stamper store, and in the UK, and I believe she ships to Europe, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely in the UK anyway, you can buy the stamps from Julia Watts. I think it's juliawatts.co.uk, but I'll put the link in the description box again. I'll also put my information down in the description box. So if you want to see more of my work that isn't Fairy Stamper, then you can pop over and see me on the social media over there. And I do have a playlist. I think each of us of the video design team members has a playlist on the Fairy Stamper channel. So you can just have a look at if you click on the channels tab, you can see if you want to sort of binge someone's videos. And final stages, so I've cut down the panels and we're just doing a bit of gluing. I'm using a glue that's strong but also gives a bit of wiggle time. I think that's important when you're gluing down mats and layers and you're wanting them to all be nice and neat. If you're a bit of a sort of neat, wanting everything to be perfect person like I am. Oh, checking that's dry. Yep, it is. This glue bottle is nearing the end of its life, but it's okay because I've just bought 4 more. It was in the sale. There was a good reason. I'm not a great hoarder of glue. Cardstock and stamps and dies, but not particularly glue. Making sure it's well adhered, especially when using a pearlescent or a glitter card. And then just finishing off with a few Nouveau drops. And there we go. So that's all from me today. I hope you enjoyed this different style of video for me, and if you'd like to find out more about my work, my information will be in the description box below. So that's all from me today, Terry, and I'll see and speak to you soon with some more crafty goodness. Bye for now.